Welcome back. You're listening to Ask the CIO, sponsored by ForgeRock on Federal News Network. I'm your host, Jason Miller. My guest today is Mike Sorrento, the director of the Defense Manpower Data Center in the Department of Defense. Mike, before break, we're talking a lot about the strategy for identity and access management, ICAM. We talked about some of the roles and that you guys are picking up and moving forward on. One of the things that comes to mind is the role you play in terms of watching the evolution of ICAM, and you went through it fairly well. That today's ICAM is much different than yesterday's ICAM, which is way different than back in the HSPD 12 days of 2004, 2005. I want to look a little bit forward as well, because I know DMDC released an RFI for remote proofing capabilities a couple years ago. Where are we with that effort, and where are you heading with whether that or ICAM more generally? So maybe start with that RFI.
Sure. So remote proofing really is the focus area, but it really getting after a blended effect of not only the ability to remote proof individuals who we don't have a dynamic way of managing real-time data that will allow us to have that constant strong identity viewpoint, but also the multi-factor authentication. So there's kind of a two-pronged approach. One is we want to improve on the ability to manage credentials that are issued for remote access. And generally that population, it's not our known population within the DoD, right? We've got about 8 million people that we have their identity. And those are military, civilian employees and contractors that we're constantly having updated management around strong identity management pieces. But where we have a larger population, at this point, like 20 million veterans and dependents and other affiliated individuals coming in outside the DoD network through our DS Logon, that's where the ability to give them the credential, but then continue to maintain that credential becomes important, where we now allow the remote proofing piece, and that we're continuing to build on that. Where we're moving to is a stronger model of that authentication, where as opposed to just like challenge questions, we're sort of in this continual assessment using multiple data sources that are publicly available, or in some cases you pay for them, to be able to assure the identity of individuals coming in, improving the security and increasing, again, the multi-factor authentication. In this case, a two-factor authentication approach that is currently in play now with DS Login, which is really a great improvement over the previous single authentication factor, and then the ability to maintain that credential through a constant or continuous evaluation like process. And so we're strengthening that. It's going to over the next couple of years, we're going to continue to work those algorithms. And then the further piece of this, which I think is extremely vital, as we all know, that identity theft is such an incredibly increasing threat to the world, right? And there's just such increased and ongoing threats. We're building identity threat features and the identity threat program around a lot of these capabilities, core capabilities like remote proofing and the access to our systems from external sources, so that we can support, in one case, support prevention. Obviously, that's the goal, is to prevent identity theft. But where there are very, very sophisticated techniques out there, we want to be able to support any forensics and any law enforcement pieces associated with it. So we've got quite a bit of ideas and capabilities in the queue that'll be coming online, some of which are already implemented, and many more that are going to just continue to strengthen our ability to ensure we have the right people getting access to the right information at the right time.
Without a doubt, that is what this is all about, ensuring that secure data, secure information sharing. Can you go back again? I just want to tag back to that 2018 RFI. I know it's been a couple of years. Did you guys make any kind of award? Did that ever come to an acquisition strategy?
We had an initial capability come online through an existing source that we had. So the RFI was use to build out a better requirement set. But we absolutely did move forward with remote proofing, even without having a broader industry input into that. So we wanted to implement something. We did that immediately. We've continued down that path for some time. We've recently awarded a contract to continue to mature those capabilities. We think that there'll be more opportunity in this space as we learn more about what industry capabilities are out there. I think we probably would be interested in even putting another RFI out to say what else is coming online, because the dynamics in this space continue to mature almost at warp speed. So we think we're in good shape for the next year, but we are still looking for even better and better ideas from the technology standpoint, from the capabilities for the identity as a service. So we've got a few pilots in the hopper as well that are going to support this. We're working towards a digital ID for our USID customers so that we can provide that credential on a mobile platform. And those are related because we want to have a continuous identity as a service connected to those pieces so we can continue to extend the benefit platforms to our customers who are, frankly, demanding in a way, but it's the kind of things that you and I are all familiar with. You can pull out your iPhone or your Android and you can Google Pay or Apple Pay. You can show your credentials and you can get service. So we need to be that agile in the Department of Defense, but with strong authentication modes and strong ability to continue to proof people for their identity as a service.
All right, Mike, I will tell you now, I'm just going to fair warning now, your phone, your email will be off the hook as Industries Now has heard you may be looking for a new RFI and looking to extend what you guys are doing. So my apologies for that right now. We'll get to that later as well, maybe how industry can continue to help you. You talked about identity as a service. You talked about the data piece. You talked about the ongoing need to look at data and find data. All this plays into this idea of cloud computing, and we can't have a conversation when we talk about ICAM and with CIOs without cloud coming up. Where does cloud play for DMDC, and how does it how do you find that right balance between on-premise networks and obviously cloud networks?
Well, yeah, Jason, we're right in that space right now. And number one is we're following the DoD's cloud strategy. We've implemented and produced. In my other hat as CIO with DHRA and the HRIT portfolio, we've produced a cloud strategy that is in line with the DoD's cloud strategy. So obviously, cloud smart, right? We need to be cloud smart. Not every capability we have will align perfectly to some cloud service that's out there, and there'll be a strong business case to use it. But we're laser focused on where there are opportunities. Our number one priority is to leverage software as a service. If there is a capability out there that we can buy to extend our services out further, that's where we're headed. And we're doing that today in some of our key capabilities. One is in our civilian portfolio. We're leveraging the Oracle HCM cloud platform to build out the next version of technology there. We're looking at the travel, the defense travel system, which we also operate. It's a people system, right? It helps people get to places. And we're looking at commercial sources. The SAP Concur platform is currently a prototype that we've leveraged through an OTA, and it's delivering. So we're looking at number one there, but then, platform cloud, we've got the second priority is that where we can't get to SaaS, let's look at platforms, and we're leveraging AWS and other key platform areas. And then lastly, the infrastructure as a service, we've got an investment to close a lot of our data, close our data centers essentially where we can move things to platform or software and to get them over to an infrastructure so we can close some legacy data centers. I still think that we're going to have some balance of on-prem where unique requirements within the department are needed. But again, the strategy is cloud smart and not to just run to the cloud and get there and perhaps not have a strong a linkage to our mission space that we would want to have. So we're doing it quickly but cautiously.
It's interesting that you talk about this idea of the balance, because I hear that often from CIOs who say, we're always going to have some footprint on premise, we're always going to have some footprint in the cloud, and the goal is how to make that all come together and work well. And it sounds like through some of these pilots, that's what you're trying to do, is say, okay, how do we find that right balance? Does it make sense to go to the cloud for this, but maybe not that? Is there, I guess the two questions I would have is, one is your cloud strategy, is that a public document? Is that something people could find online? And then two, if not, is there something more you could give us in terms of, are you guys doing application rationalization? Is there DevSecOps models? I know I'm just throwing a bunch of buzzwords at you here, but I think that all plays into your ability to say what's going to go to the cloud and what's going to stay on-prem.
Well, there's a lot in that question, and I would say check yes to all the above. Part of my responsibilities are broader than just technical on the CIO, Defense Manpower Data Center programs, but is also portfolio manager linked into the Defense Business Council through my chain of command. So we support efforts on the HRIT portfolio as a core, defense business system program area, right, in terms of the business space. We're driving rationalization. So I'll start with the rationalization. We're driving that first, and we're getting after, the fact that there are so many microsystems out there performing functions that we could collapse with a good technology roadmap. So part of the dovetailing of those discussions are where there are services out there, where there are cloud capabilities that we can leverage, platforms particularly, and there's a bit of, I think, challenge in getting to software as a service capabilities that can address, broadly speaking. We find ourselves doing a lot of integration work there anyway, so that's where the hybrid model comes in. One example is the Oracle HCM. As we build out the current civilian personnel processes there, we're having to build infrastructure in the cloud, so the Oracle Cloud infrastructure is supporting us. The good news there is it'll all be one data center at some point on Oracle's roadmap. So we're teaming with industry to drive. We've supported the provisional authorizations and now the ATOs associated with those environments. So we're actually leading a lot in this space so that we can have a model similar to Platform One. Not saying that we're the Air Force, but that's a history that I lived in the past, to get after the ability to stand up infrastructure, platforms, and services all in an interoperable cloud mesh, if you will. And that's really where I think we're going to get the best value, is when our business people, our business analysts, are able to use common tools across and be able to share data within an interoperable environment, and be able to build tools that build their mission space out to become really what they need to be effective in their mission and in their operation. So we've got the framework to create that space. We need the partnership with the functional communities, and we're getting that across all the MILDEPs. And it's a journey that I think we're going to come out of this with a modern environment. Well, I think we are going to come out of this with a much more modern platforms, technology, and most importantly, more secure.
All right, all three important things going forward, especially when it comes around the data and the mission critical needs. Mike, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we can continue our conversation. My guest today is Mike Sorrento, the director of the Defense Manpower Data Center in the Department of Defense. I'm Jason Miller, and you're listening to Ask the CIO, sponsored by ForgeRock on Federal News Network.